He installed cameras in his home to protect his paralyzed daughter. What he saw through those screens broke him in ways he never saw coming. Louis Griffin had everything a man could want. At 43, he'd built a fortune developing luxury properties across the country. His estate sat in the hills of Scottsdale, Arizona, glass, stone, and sunlight. On paper, his life looked perfect. But inside that house, there was only silence. One night, 9 months ago, everything ended. A drunk driver, a red light, metal and glass and screaming tires. His wife Sarah died at the scene. Their daughter Chloe, just 3 months old, was pulled from the wreckage and rushed into surgery. The doctor said her spine was shattered, that her legs would never move again. When they finally let Louis hold her, he looked down at her tiny, motionless body and felt something inside him break forever. The months that followed were a nightmare. Louis tried to care for Chloe alone. Between the sleepless nights, the medical appointments, and running his business, he was drowning. So he hired help. The first caregiver quit after 3 days. The second lasted a week. The third just disappeared, left a note, and never came back. Each time someone walked out, Louis felt himself sinking deeper. By the time Chloe turned 1, Louis had stopped believing anyone would stay. Then Victoria Grant showed up. She was 28, calm, didn't flinch when Louis told her about Chloe's condition. Just asked one question: "Can I meet her?" When Victoria knelt beside Chloe's crib and whispered, "Hi, beautiful, I'm Victoria," something impossible happened. Chloe smiled. For the first time in months, his daughter smiled. Louis hired her on the spot. That night he couldn't sleep. He wanted to believe Victoria was different, that maybe, just maybe, someone had finally come to stay. But fear has a way of poisoning hope. At 3 in the morning, Louis made a choice that would haunt him forever. He ordered cameras, small, hidden, wireless. He told himself it was to protect Chloe. But what those cameras would reveal wasn't danger. It was something far more devastating. Before we continue, subscribe, and tell me where in the world you're watching from. Because what happens when fear destroys the very thing you're trying to protect? Monday morning, Victoria walked through Louis's front door for the first time as Chloe's caregiver. Louis was already at his office in downtown Scottsdale, but his mind wasn't on the contracts in front of him. It was on his phone. He opened the app connected to the cameras he'd hidden throughout his house, one in the living room, one in the kitchen, one tucked inside the picture frame near Chloe's crib. Just for a few days, he told himself, just until I know for sure. On the screen, Victoria set her bag down by the door, tied her hair back, started tidying the kitchen. Louis watched, waiting for something to go wrong. Then Chloe cried. Victoria didn't hesitate. She dropped what she was doing and went straight to the nursery. Louis leaned closer to the screen. Victoria lifted Chloe gently, checked her diaper, changed her with steady hands. Nothing unusual. Just care. But then Victoria didn't put Chloe back in the crib. Instead, she carried her to the living room and spread a colorful playmat across the floor, the one Louis had bought months ago but never used. She laid Chloe on her stomach, then got down on the floor beside her. Eye to eye. Louis frowned. What was she doing? "Let's try reaching for this, sweet girl," Victoria said softly, placing a stuffed animal just out of Chloe's reach. Chloe stared at it. Then, slowly, stretched her little arm forward. Victoria moved the toy closer, encouraged her, waited. Louis realized what he was watching. This wasn't play. This was therapy. Victoria began massaging Chloe's legs, slow, intentional circles, the kind of movements that required training, knowledge. And then Chloe laughed, a real full laugh that echoed through the baby monitor. Louis felt his chest tighten. He hadn't heard that sound in 9 months. Victoria kept going, turning kitchen pots into drums, making silly faces, holding Chloe close when she got tired. Every movement was patient, loving, professional. By the time Louis's assistant knocked on his office door 2 hours later, he realized he'd done no work at all. He'd just been watching. That evening, after Victoria left and Chloe was asleep, Louis sat in the dark living room with his laptop open. He stared at the search bar for a long time before finally typing her name. Victoria Grant, Arizona. The results loaded slowly. Arizona State University Pediatric Nursing Program. Louis scrolled down. Status, withdrawn, junior year. His heart started to pound. He kept searching, and then he found it. An obituary from 5 years ago. Benjamin Grant, age 7, beloved son and brother, died peacefully after a long battle with cerebral palsy. Louis read the name again. Grant. Victoria's last name. Benjamin was her brother. She'd been caring for him, and then he died. And she'd left nursing school right after. Louis sat back, his mind racing. The woman caring for his daughter wasn't just some random hire. She was someone who'd lost everything too. Someone who knew exactly what it felt like to love a child who couldn't walk. Louis opened the camera app again. It was late now, almost midnight. Victoria was still there, sitting beside Chloe's crib in the dim light, one hand resting gently on the baby's chest. She was crying. Louis turned up the volume. "I won't let you down, Chloe," Victoria whispered, her voice breaking. "Not like I let him down, I promise you." Louis closed the laptop. His hands were shaking. For the first time since Sarah died, Louis felt something he didn't recognize. Not quite hope, but something close. And it terrified him more than anything else. Because if Victoria turned out to be everything she seemed, what would that say about the man watching her through hidden cameras? 3 weeks passed, and everything changed. Chloe stopped staring at the ceiling. She started tracking Victoria's movements around the room, her eyes lighting up whenever Victoria walked in. She babbled, soft, happy sounds that Louis had forgotten she could make. And she smiled. All the time. Louis watched it all through the cameras. Every morning, Victoria would arrive and immediately go to Chloe. She'd sing while changing her, talk to her like she understood every word, lay her on the mat and work through gentle exercises, stretching her legs, encouraging her to reach, to grasp, to try. Some afternoons, Chloe would fall asleep in Victoria's arms on the couch, her small head resting against Victoria's shoulder, completely at peace. Louis had never seen his daughter sleep like that with anyone, not even him. He started coming home earlier. At first, he told himself it was to check on Chloe, but deep down, he knew the truth. He wanted to see Victoria. One evening, he walked in to find them on the living room floor. Victoria was holding a colorful toy above Chloe's head, and Chloe was reaching for it with both hands, giggling uncontrollably. "Look at you, strong girl," Victoria laughed. "You almost got it." When Victoria noticed Louis standing in the doorway, she smiled. "She's been working so hard today. I think she's getting stronger." Louis felt something twist in his chest. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for everything you do for her." Victoria's expression softened. "She makes it easy." That night after Victoria left, Louis sat with Chloe in the nursery. She was wide awake, staring up at him with those big blue eyes. "Mama va," Chloe babbled suddenly. Louis froze. "What did you say, sweetheart?" "Mama va." She was trying to say Victoria's name. Louis felt his throat close up. His daughter had chosen someone, and it wasn't just anyone. It was the woman he'd been watching through hidden cameras for 3 weeks. The woman who cried beside Chloe's crib at night, whispering promises about a brother she couldn't save. The woman who was pouring her broken heart into loving his daughter back to life. And Louis, God help him, was falling in love with her. But he couldn't tell her. Not while the cameras were still there. Not while he was still lying to her every single day. Late that night, Louis opened his laptop one more time. The camera feed showed Victoria's coat still hanging by the door. She always forgot it. He stared at the screen, his finger hovering over the app's delete button. Just turn them off. Tell her the truth. Start over. But fear whispered louder than courage. What if she's not who you think she is? What if you're wrong? What if you tell her and she leaves, and Chloe loses the only person who's made her happy again? Louis closed the laptop without deleting anything. He told himself it was to protect Chloe. But the cameras stayed on, and the lie kept growing. 6 weeks in, Louis came home early on a Thursday afternoon. The house was quiet. Too quiet. He set his briefcase down and walked toward the living room, then stopped. Victoria was sitting on the floor with Chloe, but something was different. She was crying, not loud, not dramatic, just silent tears streaming down her face while she gently massaged Chloe's legs. "I tried so hard with him," Victoria whispered, her voice barely audible. "I read every book, learned every therapy technique. I thought if I'd just worked harder, prayed harder, loved him enough." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. But it wasn't enough. He still left me. Chloe reached up and touched Victoria's cheek with her tiny hand. Victoria let out a soft, broken laugh. "You're such a sweet girl. You remind me so much of him." Louis stepped back into the hallway, his heart pounding. He shouldn't be hearing this, but he couldn't walk away. That night, after Victoria left, Louis checked the cameras again. He told himself he was looking for red flags, for reasons to justify what he'd done. But all he saw was a woman who loved his daughter like she was her own. The next morning, Victoria arrived with something new, a small wooden box. "I brought some things," she said to Chloe, kneeling beside her on the mat, "things that helped my brother when he was little." She opened the box. Inside were colorful foam shapes, textured balls, soft brushes. "Benjamin loved these," Victoria said softly, running her fingers over them. They helped him feel things even when his body wouldn't move the way he wanted. She placed one of the textured balls in Chloe's hand. Chloe squeezed it, fascinated. "That's it, sweet girl, just like he used to." Louis watched from the doorway, unseen. Victoria wasn't just caring for Chloe, she was healing herself through her. That evening, Louis made a decision. He was going to tell her about the cameras, about everything. He would apologize, remove them, and start over with honesty. Because Victoria deserved the truth, and Chloe deserved a mother who wasn't being watched like a criminal. Louis walked toward the living room, rehearsing what he'd say. But when he reached the doorway, he froze. Victoria was on her phone, her voice low and tense. I know. I'm trying. I'll have it by next week, I promise." A pause. "Please don't. I just need a little more time." She hung up and pressed her hands to her face, shoulders trembling. Louis stepped back, his mind racing. Who was she talking to? What was she trying to have by next week? The cameras suddenly felt less like paranoia and more like protection. He walked back to his office and opened the app. He'd tell her the truth. Just not yet. Louis couldn't stop thinking about that phone call. Over the next few days, he watched the cameras more carefully, looking for something, anything that would explain what Victoria needed money for. But all he saw was the same thing. A woman who loved his daughter. One afternoon, he watched Victoria sit with Chloe during nap time, gently stroking her hair. "You know what, sweet girl?" Victoria whispered. "Your daddy's a good man. He's just scared. I can see it in his eyes." Louis's chest tightened. "People who've lost everything are always scared," she continued softly. "They build walls so high they forget what it feels like to let someone in." She kissed Chloe's forehead. "But I'm not going anywhere, I promise you that." Louis closed his laptop and sat in the silence of his office. She saw right through him. That evening, Louis came home to find Victoria packing her things. His heart stopped. "You're leaving?" Victoria looked up, surprised. "Oh, no, I'm just heading out for the day. Chloe's asleep." Louis exhaled, trying to hide the panic in his voice. "Right, of course." Victoria smiled softly. "You look exhausted, Louis. When's the last time you took a real break?" "I don't know," he admitted. "You can't pour from an empty cup," she said gently. "Chloe needs you strong." There was something in her eyes. Kindness, understanding. Louis felt the words rising in his throat. "I need to tell you something. About the cameras. About everything." But before he could speak, Victoria's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her entire expression changed. The warmth drained from her face. I have to go, she said quickly, grabbing her bag. Victoria, wait. But she was already out the door. Louis stood there staring at the empty space where she'd been. That night, he checked the cameras again, and he found something he wasn't supposed to see. A notification on Victoria's phone, visible for just a second when she set it down on the counter earlier that day. Final notice. Eviction proceedings will begin if payment is not received by... The message cut off. Louis' stomach dropped. Victoria was about to lose her home, and she hadn't said a word. Suddenly, everything made sense. The late-night phone calls, the tension in her voice, the way she always stayed later than she needed to. She wasn't just working for Chloe, she was working to survive. Louis sat back, his mind racing. He could help her, write her a check, solve the problem. But how would he explain that he knew? How would he tell her he'd been watching her every move for 6 weeks? For the first time, Louis realized the cameras hadn't protected him from anything. They'd trapped him in a lie he didn't know how to escape. The next day, Louis did something he'd never done before. He stayed home from work. When Victoria arrived that morning, she found him in the kitchen making coffee. "You're here," she said, surprised. "Thought I'd take your advice," Louis said, "about not running on empty." Victoria smiled. "Good. Chloe will love having you around." They spent the morning together, the three of them. Louis watched as Victoria worked with Chloe, showing him the exercises, explaining what each one was for. "See how I support her here?" Victoria said, gently positioning Chloe's legs. "It keeps her muscles from tightening up, and when I do this," she pressed lightly on Chloe's foot, "it stimulates the nerve pathways. Even if she can't feel it, her body remembers." Louis knelt beside them. "Where did you learn all this?" Victoria's hands paused for just a second. "I had a good teacher." "Your brother," Louis said quietly. Victoria's head snapped up, eyes wide. "How did you—" "I saw his toys," Louis said quickly, gesturing to the box. "You mentioned his name once. Benjamin." Victoria's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Yeah, Benjamin." Her voice softened. "I took care of him from the time I was 16 until he was 7. "I'm sorry," Louis said. "Me too." Victoria wiped her eyes. "I thought if I became a nurse I could save kids like him, but when he died I couldn't." Her voice broke. "I couldn't keep going. It felt like everything I learned was useless." Louis reached out and touched her hand. "It wasn't useless. Look at Chloe. Look at what you've done for her." Victoria looked down at their hands, then back at him. For a moment, the air between them shifted. "Louis," she whispered, "I need to tell you something." His heart stopped. "What?" She hesitated, searching his face. Chloe let out a sudden cry, breaking the moment. Victoria pulled away and lifted the baby. "It's okay, sweet girl. I've got you." Louis stood there, his chest tight. She was about to tell me something. That afternoon, Victoria seemed distracted, quieter than usual. As she was leaving, Louis stopped her at the door. "Victoria, earlier you said you needed to tell me something." She looked at him, conflict written all over her face. "It's nothing, really." It didn't sound like nothing. Victoria bit her lip. I want you to know that I care about Chloe. A lot. And I'm not going anywhere, no matter what." "No matter what?" Louis repeated. But Victoria just smiled sadly and walked out. That night, Louis couldn't sleep. He kept replaying her words. No matter what. What did that mean? He opened the camera app, hating himself for it. The living room was empty. The kitchen was dark. But then he noticed something on the counter. Victoria's jacket. She'd forgotten it again. And beside it, her phone. Still there. Louis' stomach dropped. She was coming back. Victoria came back 20 minutes later. Louis heard the key turn in the lock. He closed his laptop quickly, his heart racing. "Sorry," Victoria called out. "I left my phone." "It's on the counter," Louis said, stepping into the hallway. Victoria grabbed it, then paused. "Is Chloe still asleep?" "Yeah, out cold," she smiled. "Good. She had a big day." As she turned to leave, her bag caught the edge of the decorative bowl on the counter. It tipped, fell, shattered on the floor. "Oh no!" Victoria dropped to her knees, gathering the pieces. "I'm so sorry, Louis. I'll replace it." Then she stopped. Her hand hovered over something small and black in the wreckage. A camera, lens pointing up at her. Victoria picked it up slowly, her face going pale. Louis felt the floor drop out from under him. "Victoria," she stood, holding the camera in her trembling hand. "What is this?" "I can explain." "What is this?" Her voice was so quiet, so controlled, but Louis could see her whole body shaking. "I was scared," Louis said, his words tumbling out. "After all the caregivers left, I didn't know who to trust. I just wanted to make sure Chloe was safe." Victoria stared at him. Then, without a word, she walked into the living room. Louis followed. "Victoria, please." She scanned the room with new eyes, walked to the picture frame near the couch, pulled it down. Another camera. She let out a sound, half laugh, half sob. Then she went to the kitchen, found the one in the smoke detector, the nursery, the one tucked behind Chloe's bookshelf. Each discovery was another wound. "How long?" Victoria's voice cracked. 6 weeks. She turned to face him, tears streaming down her face. 6 weeks. You watched me for 6 weeks. "I was going to tell you." "When?" she demanded. "When, Louis? After 6 months? A year? Never?" "I'm sorry." "You watched me cry," she whispered. "You watched me talk about Benjamin. You watched me grieve. You watched me pray over your daughter." Her voice rose. "Every single private moment, you were there, watching me like I was some kind of—" She couldn't finish. From upstairs, Chloe started crying. Victoria moved on instinct, heading for the stairs. But then she stopped, turned back to Louis. "I trusted you," she said, her voice breaking completely. "I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I'd found somewhere I belonged." Chloe's cries grew louder. Victoria wiped her eyes. "I have to go." "Victoria, don't—" "I can't stay here." She grabbed her jacket and walked toward the door. Upstairs, Chloe was screaming now. Not just crying, screaming. "Mama va! Mama va!" Victoria stopped at the door, her hand on the knob, her whole body trembling. Then she opened it and walked out into the night. The door closed softly behind her, and Chloe screamed like her heart was breaking. That first night, Chloe cried for 4 hours straight. Louis tried everything, held her, rocked her, sang to her. Nothing worked. She kept reaching toward the door, her small face red and swollen. "Mama va," she sobbed. "Mama va." By morning, she'd stopped eating. Louis tried to give her a bottle. She turned her face away, tried her favorite foods. She wouldn't open her mouth. By day 3, Chloe had stopped making sounds altogether. She just lay in her crib, staring at the ceiling, exactly like she'd been after the accident, like she'd given up. Louis called a pediatric nurse, someone with excellent credentials. The woman lasted 3 hours. Chloe screamed the moment she picked her up, screamed until she couldn't breathe, until her face turned purple. "I'm sorry, Mr. Griffin," the nurse said, pale and shaken. "She needs her mother." Louis tried again 2 days later. A different caregiver, someone who specialized in traumatized children. Chloe wouldn't let her touch her at all. She curled into the corner of her crib, hyperventilating, making herself as small as possible. The woman left after 1 day. "That baby's experiencing severe abandonment trauma. She's bonded to someone specific, and without that person, she's shutting down." Louis stopped trying after that. Work fell apart. He missed meetings, forgot to return calls. A major deal collapsed because he couldn't focus long enough to read the contract. His business partner called, concerned. "Louis, what's going on with you?" "I don't know," Louis whispered. He stopped going to the office altogether. Every night he sat in the dark living room staring at his phone. The cameras were still there, still recording empty rooms. Sometimes late at night he'd open the old footage, watch Victoria sing to Chloe, watch her smile, watch her love his daughter with everything she had. And he'd cry, because he destroyed the only good thing that had walked into their broken lives. 2 weeks after Victoria left, Louis found himself on the floor of Chloe's nursery at 3 in the morning. His daughter was finally asleep after hours of crying, her small face swollen and tear-stained. And Louis understood something he'd been too afraid to face. The cameras hadn't protected Chloe from danger. They'd protected him from having to trust again, from having to be vulnerable, from having to believe that someone could actually love them without wanting something in return. And now Chloe was paying the price for his fear. Louis looked at his daughter, this tiny, broken girl who'd already lost so much, and he realized she was losing something else, not just Victoria, but hope. The next morning, Louis called his mother. "I need you to take Chloe for a few days." "Louis, what?" "I have to find Victoria," he said, his voice shaking, "and I'm not coming back without her." He didn't pack a bag, didn't rehearse what he'd say. He just got in his car and drove, because some things are worth fighting for, even when you're the one who broke them. Louis drove to Victoria's apartment first. The landlord answered the door, irritated. "She's gone. Evicted 3 weeks ago." "Where did she go?" The man shrugged, said something about a shelter, East Side maybe. Louis felt his stomach twist. Victoria was homeless, because she'd spent everything she had caring for his daughter. He drove from shelter to shelter in the rain, 4 places. No one had heard of her. At the 5th shelter, a converted church with peeling paint, a woman at the front desk finally nodded. "Victoria Grant, room 2C upstairs." Louis climbed the stairs, his heart pounding. Room 2C was a dormitory with 6 beds. 3 women were inside, and there, by the window, sat Victoria. She was thinner, her face hollow, her eyes tired. In her hands she held something small and worn, Chloe's photograph, the one Louis had printed and put on the refrigerator months ago. Victoria was staring at it, tears falling silently. "Victoria," Louis said softly. She looked up. For a moment she didn't seem to recognize him, then her eyes focused, and her whole body went rigid. "No," she whispered, "you can't be here. Please, just let me talk to you." "There's nothing to say, Louis. Chloe needs you." Victoria flinched like he'd struck her. "She stopped eating," Louis continued, his voice breaking. "She cries every night until she has no voice left. She won't let anyone else touch her." Victoria's hands were trembling, the photograph shaking in her grip. "3 caregivers have quit. She's shutting down, Victoria, just like after the accident." Tears streamed down Victoria's face. "And Louis' voice cracked. "I need you too." Victoria stood, backing toward the wall. "You didn't trust me." "I know. You watched me grieve. You watched me pray. You watched every private moment I had. And I was wrong," Louis said, "about everything." He stepped closer. "The cameras weren't protection, Victoria. They were fear. My fear. Because after Sarah died, I didn't know how to trust anyone again." His voice dropped to a whisper. "But those cameras showed me something I was too broken to see." "What?" Victoria demanded, voice shaking. "That you love Chloe like she's your own, that she loves you, that you brought joy back into a house that had forgotten what laughter sounded like." He looked at her with everything he had. "You made me feel alive again, Victoria. You made me believe we could be a family." Victoria sobbed, one hand covering her mouth. "I destroyed that," Louis said. "I destroyed us, because I couldn't let go of my fear long enough to see what was right in front of me." Victoria slid down the wall, sitting on the floor, still clutching Chloe's picture. "Do you know what it's like," she whispered, "to think you finally found a home, only to realize you were being watched the whole time?" "I know," Louis said, kneeling in front of her. "And I don't expect you to forgive me." "Then why are you here?" "Because Chloe chose you. A 1-year-old baby looked at every person in her life and chose you as her mother." Victoria closed her eyes, fresh tears spilling. "And I'm choosing you too," Louis said. "Right now, no cameras, no conditions, just me, asking you to please come home." Victoria looked at him, broken and afraid. "I'm scared, Louis. I'm terrified of losing you both." "Then don't," Louis whispered. "Come home. Let me spend the rest of my life proving you're not alone anymore." For a long moment, Victoria said nothing. Then, finally, she nodded. "Okay," she breathed. "Let's go home." They drove home as the sun set over Scottsdale. Louis held Victoria's hand the entire way. When they pulled up to the house, Louis's mother was waiting on the front steps with Chloe. The baby looked so small, so tired, her face still swollen from crying. Victoria stepped out of the car. For a moment, Chloe didn't react. Then she saw Victoria's face, and her whole body lurched forward. "Mama va!" Her voice was hoarse, broken, but unmistakable. Victoria ran. The moment Chloe was in her arms, the baby clutched her with everything she had, tiny fists gripping Victoria's shirt, face buried in her neck, sobbing. "I'm here, sweet girl," Victoria cried. "I'm here. I'm never leaving again." Louis's mother wiped her eyes and quietly slipped inside, leaving them alone. That night, after Chloe finally fell asleep in Victoria's arms, Louis went to the garage. He came back carrying a box and a hammer. Inside the box, every camera. "I want them gone," Victoria said, staring at them. "Then let's do it together," Louis said. Victoria took the hammer first. The sound of breaking plastic echoed through the house like a promise being made. They took turns, one camera after another, each strike erasing fear, building trust. When the last one was destroyed, Louis pulled Victoria close. "No more watching," he whispered. "Only living." "And loving," Victoria added. "And loving," Louis agreed. 3 months later, on a quiet evening in November, Louis knelt in the living room, right where they'd destroyed the cameras. "Victoria Grant," he said, holding a simple ring. "Will you marry me?" Victoria was crying before he even finished. "Yes. Yes." 4 months after that, they stood in the garden under cherry blossoms. Chloe was the flower girl, almost 2 years old now, wearing a tiny white dress, and when the music started, something miraculous happened. With Louis's mother steadying her, Chloe took 5 steps down the aisle. 5 trembling, determined steps toward Victoria. Everyone cried. When Chloe's legs gave out, Margaret scooped her up and carried her the rest of the way. But those 5 steps were everything. In their vows, Louis promised to always trust. Victoria promised to always stay. Chloe clapped and yelled, "Mama, da-da!" Close enough. 1 year later, Victoria opened the Benjamin Grant Foundation, a therapy center for children with disabilities, free services, real hope. On opening day, Chloe cut the ribbon. She was walking now with leg braces, slow but steady. The plaque read, "For Benjamin, who taught me to love. For Chloe, who taught me to hope." Late that evening, Louis and Victoria sat on the back porch, watching the stars. Inside, they heard Chloe call out in her sleep, "Mama!" Victoria started to rise, but Louis stopped her. "I'll go," he said, "because that's what family does. They show up. They stay. They choose each other every single day with trust, with truth, and with the kind of love that doesn't need cameras to prove it's real. The kind that just is. And that, Louis realized as he walked upstairs to his daughter, was worth more than anything he'd ever built, because some things can't be controlled or captured. They can only be lived and trusted and loved